Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the Resiliency Board meeting. Today, we're going to be, this is our inaugural meeting. So we are going to be spending the lion's share of today hearing from our Assistant Manager and Planner, Ian McMeans, on what it means to serve on the Resiliency Board. After that presentation, we will have some discussion on some administrative issues, mostly related to the selection of a chair, which we may or may not do this evening. We'll decide that after Ian's presentation.
As Eric mentioned, this is the fifth stop with the new advisory boards. The other boards that I've been to, they've done kind of introductions of the new board members to kind of get to know each other. I don't know if you want to do that now before my presentation, if you want to wait till after.
Why don't we do it now?
Sure, let's do it now. So I'm Ian McMeans. I'm your Assistant Municipal Manager. So I've been involved in the project with the Commission of the Advisory Board realignment. I worked on the whole policies and procedures document that I sent out. I'll call it bylaws. That makes it easier, that the commission approved. So that was a very lengthy document that was filled with a lot of legalese because it was reviewed by our solicitor. And no offense, John, but anytime you get lawyers involved, sometimes you wind up with a document that has a lot of legalese in it. So I hopefully have made it a little more digestible for everyone to understand. So that's mostly what I'll go through tonight. As for myself, I have lived in Mount Lebanon for about 13 years now. I've worked for the municipality for 8 years and live here with my wife and many kids.
All right, hi everyone, I'm Kirill Tropin. I lived here for 7 months, moved here from Berlin, Germany. Very happy with the decision to move here, enjoying our time here. Before that, I lived in Seattle area for a while and served on a transportation committee there in a city called Bellevue and saw crazy growth that the area went over the last 15 years. Yeah, very happy to be here.
I'm John Vogel. By day and night, I'm a municipal and school board solicitor. Live in Chalmers Place. I've been here about many decades, and my 3 kids who are now in their late 20s. So, but I was on the Economic Development Council, and I kind of like doing this type of work, and glad to be able to serve.
So you're not a solicitor, you're a board member?
Yeah, here I'm not this. I never was a solicitor either.
Okay.
But yeah, that's my job otherwise. So thanks.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Mike Gullo. I teach at the high school. I teach advanced placement environmental geoscience, which I'm pretty sure I know that I had your daughter.
Yeah.
And I've been living in Mount Lebanon since 2014, I believe. I think we moved from Peters Township to Lebo. I have 3 kids, an 8th grader, a 6th grader, and a 5th grader. And I served on the Environmental Sustainability Board before this board for 1 year prior to today. So I'm excited to join the new board and see what it has to offer, or see what I have to offer. Yes.
I'm Grace Gartman. I am also a teacher out in Gateway School District though. This is my 3rd year in Mount Lebanon, I think. I'm originally from the Tampa, Florida area, but master's degree in historic preservation. Served on the preservation board this past year, and yeah, just wanted to get more plugged in with Mount Lebanon as a sort of new transplant, and thought it would be a great way to continue to get involved.
I'm Greg Wharton. I would say assistant planner, but urban planning and sustainability coordinator is the full title. I work with Ian in the planning office, and I was the liaison to the environmental sustainability board. And then also just going to be co-liaison with Eric, South Hills native, and also from our previous conversation, an IUP grad as well. So we can have a good connection there, Phil. But just happy to be here. So.
Excellent. Jeff Sigler. I am the recently elected Ward 1 commissioner and work as a community revitalization consultant. So I travel around a lot and work with cities that are trying to revitalize their commercial districts.
Eric Milliron, I'm the Commercial Districts and Economic Development Manager for Mount Lebanon. I've been employed here for going on 16 years, and I've been a resident for 11, I believe. I'm an ex-Seattleite, so it's nice to see a somewhat Washingtonian in the room. So my background's urban planning and community and economic development. I serve on Tree Pittsburgh's board. So I'm very involved with that. I have a minor in historic preservation. And I've been practicing economic development and community development for over 20 years. So I'm enthused to have this resiliency opportunity to work with this fine group of people.
My name is John Rumbold. I'm a construction manager for AstroTurf. I also serve on I'm on the board of the Mount Lebanon Nature Conservancy. I was on the ad hoc committee for the Veterans Memorial, and we've lived there since about 2008. I've had 2 kids go through Mount Lebanon, both at WVU now, and just like being involved, and seems like something to be kind of up my alley.
I'm Phil Lysius. I'm a retired archaeology professor from IUP, where I taught historic preservation amongst other things. And I've been in Mount Lebanon now for almost 6 years and been on the Historic Preservation Board for 5 years of that. So jumped right in.
My name's Lynn Lindley, and I've been in Mount Lebanon almost 4 years. I spent the first 30 years of my career in corporate retail and recently made a change at the end of last year. I'm 3 weeks into a new job at St. Clair Health in supply chain, and enjoying it immensely, but wanted to keep my finger on the pulse of development in my community. I was actually part of the Residence Academy this year, which is really what piqued my interest. So this is really my first board, and super excited to be here and hopefully can contribute.
Awesome. I'm Anna Siefkin, and I currently serve for the federal government in the Department of Energy. I'm the deputy director for a program that manages the portfolio of the United States buildings, all of the federal buildings. I've been in Mount Lebanon since 2013. I was 6 years on the Historic Preservation Board, including chair. I was also on the Economic Development, also ended up as chair. And have 2 kids who went through Mount Lebanon. One of them is about to graduate from college, which is pretty exciting. And have also done some pretty significant work in the municipality around Brick Street preservation and trying to get some sidewalks.
Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. We've got a really great team here, and I know we're going to do some great work. One of your team members.
Shannon McKenna.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shannon. Shannon, introduce yourself.
My name is Shannon. I'm the administrative assistant with the municipality.
Thank you, Shannon. Very succinct. I like that. Speaking of one of your team members, myself, it's great to see you all tonight. You're not going to see me for another 3 months. So it'll be in the capable hands of Greg. I have travel conflicts and various other things. I am still the liaison to this group. I just simply won't be at the next 3 meetings. So I wanted to just throw that out there, but we're going to keep the good work going, and it's in very capable hands. So I think we can probably toggle over to Mr. McMeans.
Sure, yeah.
Because he has a lot to talk about.
I have a few things, yes. And before I get started, I just wanted to say, thank you all for being willing to volunteer your time and your knowledge to help the municipality. It really is an important task that these advisory boards do in providing input and recommendation to the commission. And the commission does take the input of their advisory boards into consideration when making budgetary decisions. So what you're doing here is important. And we really thank you for being willing to donate your time to making Mount Lebanon a better place for everyone. So this is, as we said, the Resiliency Advisory Board. The full name in the ordinance is the Community Sustainability and Economic Development Advisory Board, but that is a mouthful. So the commission passed a resolution a few weeks ago designating alternate names for our boards. So we can call this resiliency to make it a lot easier to, not as verbose of a board name. So we'll call it resiliency from here on out, but it means the same thing. You've already met your commission liaison, Jeff Siegler, our 2 staff liaisons, Eric Milliron and Greg Wharton. So one of the things I'm hoping to kind of lay out here as we talk is why the commission went through the board realignment process, how they got to where we are, and where we want to go going forward. So every board has a commission liaison and has 2 staff liaisons. Staff liaison being appointed by the municipal manager, Keith McGill. So Eric and Greg are year 2, and they are very capable. They've both done this before for other advisory boards. Though that being said, some of the things that are in the bylaws that the commission approved are slightly different than how previous boards operated. So ways that if you served on a prior board, maybe used to operating things may be slightly different. So why did we do a realignment of advisory boards? Well, a few years ago, the commission held a goal-setting retreat, and at that retreat, they were talking about all the time that is spent between commission and staff and everyone else on boards as a whole. And when we broke it down and looked at it, we have 5 mandatory boards that we are required to have by state law. So we can't really touch those or do anything with those. The commission and municipal staff also serve on or are members of various other external boards between the Hospital Authority, MRTSA, SHACOG, Mount Lebanon Partnership. Can't really do anything about those either. So then the group in the middle, the true advisory boards that were established by ordinances over time, we had 10 of those. And when we benchmarked how many advisory boards we had against other communities, we had a lot more than all of our kind of comparable communities in the region between, Monroeville, Peters Township, South Fayette, Upper St. Clair, Cranberry. And this is not including the statutory boards or the external ones. These are the true advisory boards. So the commission, the way they were thinking of it was, they really took a ground up approach and said, okay, if we started completely from scratch, where do we want to go? And since there are 5 commissioners, they kind of settled on, let's have 5 advisory boards so that each commissioner can be a liaison to one board. And then they said, okay, well, what are the 5 areas where we want input from our resident experts on things? So those were kind of the 5 key category areas that they settled on for the 5 new advisory boards. And resiliency is one of those topics. And you're all here because you have expertise in one or multiple areas under the resiliency umbrella. Resiliency is kind of the biggest catch-all of the advisory board. So like parks and recreation, pretty straightforward. Financial management, pretty straightforward. But resiliency encompasses so many different things and different ideas with long-term planning, environmental sustainability, historic preservation, economic development, all the other things that go into the concept of resiliency. It does have the biggest umbrella of all of the advisory boards, and also one of the largest sections in the comprehensive plan, which we'll talk about a bit more later. So what is the purpose of advisory boards? So when the commission makes decisions, they get input generally from 3 key groups of people. One being the professional staff of the municipality, the second being the consultants that we hire, whether that be our solicitor, our municipal engineers, or other outside consultants, as well as input from advisory boards. And so all these groups kind of work together to make recommendations to the commission on decisions that the commission makes. And it's really a top-down model of policy direction. So the commission as a body is the one that sets policy, establishes goals, and approves the budget. The function of advisory boards is really recommending prioritization of projects or programs to achieve those goals or advance those policies as set by the commission. And then through what gets approved in the budget, the commission directs municipal staff to implement what either programs, projects, other things. And it's municipal staff that does the implementation. So at the end of the day, advisory boards really serve in that recommending capacity, advisory. And the municipal staff is the one that actually does the implementation of things. And the commission's the one setting the policy and then obviously approving the budget, which ultimately decides what gets done. Because there can be recommendations that don't get funded in a budget just because of how much available funds there is. So responsibilities of your commission liaison to relay the priorities of the commission to the board and ensuring the board is focused on commission-supported initiatives, plans, and policies. So this is one of the key differences, I'll say, with the new advisory board structure is that we really want our new boards to be focused on things that the commission has approved, whether that be, recommendations in a comprehensive plan, in a parks master plan, in a climate action plan. If the commission holds another goal-setting retreat and says, these are our top 5 or 10 priorities to work on. So all these things that the commission has voted on and approved and said, these are our documents that state what our priorities are. That's really where we want the boards to focus. And so part of the role of the commission liaison is helping the board to make sure they're focusing on what the commission wants to do and what the commission's goals are, because your time is very valuable. We don't want you to feel like you're wasting your time. One of the things that happened previously with some of our other advisory boards was a board would have an idea, they'd start running with it, they'd get all excited, they'd produce a big report, they'd give it to the commission, and the commission would say, thanks, but we're not interested in doing this time. And then the board members would all get frustrated and half of them would resign and they felt like they wasted all their time and spun their wheels for nothing. Your time is valuable. You're volunteering your time. We don't want you to feel like you're wasting your time. So that's why we really want to have the boards focused on things that the commission has already said, these are our goals, this is what we want to advance. That way, any recommendation that goes to the commission is already going to have that base level of support because it follows a priority that's already been adopted by the commission. In addition, at every commission discussion session that happens before the commission meetings, there's a standing agenda item for commissioners to report on the activities of their advisory boards. So Commissioner Siegler will report back on anything that the board might be working on to the full group so that the full group is aware and in the loop. Your 2 staff liaisons, mostly providing meeting support, so drafting agendas, keeping minutes, keeping attendance records, as well as maintaining the online SharePoint site that I think you all should have gotten invitations to. If you run into problems, you can contact either Eric, Greg, or our IT department. They can help you out. And so that's really our institutional knowledge of work that was done by the previous boards gets stored there, as well as any work that's done by these boards will also get stored there. And then onboarding and orientation of new board members. So we had one person who was appointed in the initial slate of appointments that wasn't able to accept. So then, as Eric mentioned last night, the commission appointed a new person to fill that seat. So there will be 9 board members in total, but this is kind of my warm handoff to your 2 liaisons. So I'm not going to come every time you get a new board member and do this same presentation. This is being recorded. They can go back and watch it. I'll send the PowerPoint to Eric and Greg. They can put it on the SharePoint site as well. And then the responsibility of doing orientation kind of falls on them moving forward as well. There are some limitations that the bylaws put on the new advisory boards as well. So advisory boards and their subcommittees don't have the authority to do the following things. Number 1, directing activities of municipal employees. So the only person that can direct activities of municipal employees is the municipal manager. So if a board wants an employee to do something, they would need to make a request to the municipal manager, which I would recommend the board chair send an email to the manager and say, hey, we would like this employee to do this. And then the municipal manager, weighing that employee's workload and everything else, can make a decision on whether or not he will direct that employee to do that. But the boards do not have direction or supervision over any municipal employees. Expending municipal funds, entering in some, the only groups that can do that are the commission as a whole through setting the budget or approving contracts. And the municipal manager has some leeway within our code to approve expenditures up to a certain amount. Similarly, entering into contracts, commission and municipal manager are the only ones that can do that. So the boards, while part of the municipal governance structure, don't have the authority to enter into contracts on behalf of the municipality. If you're working on a project and think there might be a consultant you want to have help with it or something like that, you could make a recommendation that the commission enter into a contract with them, but you as a board can't have a contract. And then performing functions conferred upon any other agency, and then host or sponsor events. So when the commission discussed these bylaws, there was some lengthy discussion on what the host or sponsor events thing meant. So if you're really interested, you can go back and watch the video of the commission discussion session. But in brief, what it means is boards can assist with planning, staffing, event executions of municipal events with the approval of the municipal manager. So as an example, the Community Relations Board, now Civic Engagement Board, does a Residence Academy every year that Lynn participated in this year. So the board members of the Civic Engagement Board can help with putting documents together for that. They can help with sitting at the door to welcome people in. They can, make cookies or whatever else. That all falls under the planning, staffing, event execution. But at the end of the day, it's a municipal event. It's not the board's event. Similarly, if the board is distributing educational materials, they need to coordinate with the Public Information Office to make sure that the messaging is all the same and consistent for what's going out. So what does this mean about participating in events, that we want it to be a municipal event? So this does not mean that you cannot attend events as a citizen. You are a citizen of Mount Lebanon. You are welcome to attend any events you want to as a individual. It's as a group, as a board, that like, if you want to have a table at a First Friday to hand out information on what the board was working on or collect surveys or something like that, that's what it needs the approval of the municipal manager. But you're free to attend a First Friday event as, Joe Lebo resident, but if you want to actually do something as a board, it has to be at a municipal event with the approval of the municipal manager. So that also means that boards will not independently host events that are not approved and coordinated through the municipality. Okay. So the overall structure of the advisory boards, there are 9 of you who are volunteer residents that are the appointed voting members to the board. You will elect a chair and vice chair. I'll talk a little bit more later about what those positions do. You have liaisons, so the commission liaison, staff liaison. In that resolution that the commission passed where they said we could call this the Resiliency Board, they also established 2 liaison positions for representatives from Mount Lebanon School District for every advisory board. The idea is that, we both work in the same community between the municipality and the school district. There's probably a lot of crossover and similar conversations that may happen. So it would be good to have school district representation at our advisory board meetings. So it's up to the school district to pick who they want their liaisons to be. We left it open to them whether they choose school board members, whether they choose administration members, whether they choose faculty members, whether they choose, people who are school district adjacent, like someone from the PTA may be a good representative on like the mobility board because, thinking about how students get to school as an example. But it's up to the school to pick who their liaisons are to the board. And then associate members. So the commission has not designated any associate members yet, but if the commission wanted to, the bylaws give them the ability to designate by resolution community organizations that can also send liaisons to different board meetings. So as an example, if the commission wanted, say, the Mount Lebanon Nature Conservancy to have a liaison spot to the Parks and Recreation Board, they could pass a resolution and say, we'll designate the Nature Conservancy as an associate member. So then the Conservancy could pick someone, send them to the meetings. That associate member could participate in the discussions, but would not be able to vote on anything. So only the 9 appointed members are the ones that get to vote on anything. So the liaisons don't vote, any associate members don't vote. But right now there are no associate members. And then also if there's, conversations that are happening at one board about something that may impact another board or, have similar tie-ins, boards could choose to send liaisons to other boards. Like I said, we have 5 total boards. So another board, I'll pick on mobility again, may say, hey, there's some crossover between mobility and resiliency. We'd like to know what they're talking about. We're going to appoint someone to attend their resiliency board meetings. So they could come, sit, watch, participate, report back to their board. Similarly, you could all do the same thing. If there's another board that you're interested in, you could have someone be a liaison to that board and report back to this board. But you'd not be able to vote in their meetings and they can't vote in your meeting. Okay, so what are your responsibilities as appointed board members? Advisory board members shall be residents. So if you move out of Mount Lebanon, you'll have to resign your position. But if you relocate within the municipality, that is not cause for removal. So that's first and foremost. Meeting attendance, either in person or virtually through Zoom. So all of our municipal meetings are in this Zoom webinar format. The expectation is if you're on Zoom, that you have your camera on and you're an active participant in the meetings, because we want our board members to be actively participating. And in order to count towards a quorum, we want to know that you're actually there and present and, are actively engaged. That said, obviously, if you run into technical issues and your camera won't work or something like that, we understand you can still tap into the meeting, but the expectation is if you're attending virtually, your camera's on and you're actively participating in the meeting. And then the officer running the meeting should be in person. So if whoever the chairperson is has to attend virtually or isn't available for that month, the vice chair or whoever's running the meeting should be in person. Just because if there's people in the audience to make public comment, if there's people sharing their screen, then if you're watching online, you can't see who all's there. It's just easier to be in person to actually be running the meeting. So that's pretty straightforward. If both the chair and vice chair are unavailable, you can pick someone from whoever's left to run the meeting. And then collaboration with liaisons. So commission and staff liaisons should have access to all board documents, and the commission and staff liaison should be copied on all communications regarding board business. Why that is primarily, so a lot of that has to do with the Pennsylvania right to know law, that the right to know law, anyone who wants to can file a right to know request and get documents from the municipality that relate to municipal business. And we have systems in place internally that when we get those right to know requests, we can respond to them. And obviously your commission and staff liaisons have access to the SharePoint site. So any documents stored on there, we could be able to pull and respond to those right to know requests. The problem comes up is if people are storing things on their personal computers, their personal Google Drives, and we don't have access to those, then potentially a right to know officer could subpoena access to your Google Drive to find documents related to those things. So we have a place for you to store documents. We don't want right to know officers going through your personal stuff. So use our system, don't use your own. It sounds simple, but then you never have to worry about your personal Google Drive being open to a right to know officer.
That's a good question, because
Yeah.
I do. Has there been any thought of people who serve on boards, and I know this could be a pain, but it deals with right to know, of having their own Mount Lebanon email address? Because if I would get into, or someone would get into a discussion with each other, or with Greg or Eric, then you're having the same problem that you have with Google with.
Yes. That is a great question. I'll have to ask our IT department how our emails are set up, because I'm not sure if there's limitations on like how many we have or whatever. I'm
not trying to cause
Yeah.
trouble for you, but it's.
It's a valid question. And that is also why I have about copying staff and commission liaisons on emails, because if someone requests emails through a right to know request, if your staff liaisons are copied, we'll be able to pull those and you won't have to worry about your email being opened up. Same with text messages, actually, the text messages could be subject to right to know. So generally speaking, good rule of thumb, don't put anything in an email you wouldn't say in a public meeting. So that's, and also, so that doesn't apply to like incidental communication. So if you're like, hey, are you going to the meeting tonight? That's fine. Or, hey, can I get a ride with you? That's fine. That's not going to be like right to know searchable. But if you're like, hey, will you vote for me for board chair? Like, that's kind of like board business. So, that's just try not to talk about board business. If you're going to talk about board business over email, copy your staff liaisons. That way we have copies of it. And if there's a right to know request, we can pull it through our system. But that's a good question. I'll look into that. I'm just not sure what that is. Yeah, right. No, it is a valid question. And then the other item in the bylaws is the commission obviously wants our advisory board members to be active participants. So they said that in the bylaws, board members can be placed on notice if they're absent for 4 consecutive meetings or 6 times in a 12-month period. Obviously, if you have some kind of big medical issue or something, like let the board chair know, let the staff liaison know. You don't have to violate any HIPAA laws, but open communication is better. But that is a clause that I should mention in the bylaws. So the board and the board chair don't have the ability to remove anyone. Only the commission can make appointments or removals. But if someone's placed on notice, the board chair, if they feel like the person's kind of just, disappeared, could recommend to the commission that the commission consider removing some. All right, so on to more fun things. The core responsibilities of advisory boards really is looking at the comprehensive plan, because the comp plan is our big 10-year plan for where we want Mount Lebanon to go over the next decade. Has a ton of priorities and objectives and goals and recommendations. So thinking about how to recommend and prioritize those goals in the resiliency section of the comp plan is really one of the key responsibilities of the advisory board. Making recommendations based on any other adopted plans. So if there's, Parks Master Plan, Climate Action Plan, any other adopted plans, thinking about those plans and recommending programs, policies, budgetary expenditures based on those. Capital project prioritization lists. Some of you may be familiar with that from the previous boards. I'll talk a bit more about that. You may decide to put together an annual work plan, and then there's also a requirement for an annual report that I'll talk about. But I mentioned the elected positions. So generally speaking, every April or May, the board should do a reorganization to pick a chair and vice chair. You do not have to pick different people. If the same people want to be chair and vice chair the following year, you can just keep them on. But it's good to kind of annually think about, okay, what's the time commitment, and who do we want, who wants to run the meetings, all that. So the duties of the chair: presiding over, facilitating the meetings, coordinating with the staff liaisons on agendas, tracking meeting attendance, serving as an ex officio member of any subcommittees, and then ensuring annual submissions to the planning office of the capital project lists and the annual reports. So at the beginning of this meeting, I said I was your assistant municipal manager. I'm also the municipal planner. So as my duties as municipal planner, we put together the planning office, which is Greg and myself, we're an office of two, put together the annual capital improvement program. And also we give an annual report to the commission on the progress made towards meeting the goals of the comprehensive plan. I'm happy to say that our prior comp plan, the 2013 to 2023 plan, we achieved 95% of the goals in that plan. So we've done very well in the past with our prior comp plans of actually achieving the goals that were laid out in there. But we annually give a report to the commission. So those reports that we get from the advisory boards will be a key part of that report that we then give to the commission. The vice chair has it a bit easier. Their job is to do the duties of the chair when the chair is not available. So those are pretty much the two officer positions. Your staff liaisons essentially function as like board secretaries. Shannon's also here doing the meeting minutes. And then they're the ones that kind of help put the minutes together for the board to review. Okay, so generally speaking, general procedures and guidelines. One of the things that the commission wanted to achieve with the reorganization of the advisory boards was better transparency with the public. So how do we be more transparent? Well, one of those ways is letting people know what the board's going to talk about in a timely fashion. So all of our boards now have a pretty standardized agenda that generally follows Robert's Rules of Order. Having approval of meeting minutes, citizen comments, reports from the chair, liaisons, any subcommittees, things like that. And in addition to that, a standardized RSVP deadline and pre-meeting schedule. So, in advance of a board meeting, 7 calendar days prior, I know this week's meeting was on a Thursday, typically it'll be on a Wednesday, but that was because the commission meeting got bumped back to last night, so everything got bumped back this week. But generally you'll be on Wednesday night. So a week prior will be the RSVP deadline. And that's really our hard cutoff to say whether or not we're gonna have a meeting, because we need to know if we're gonna have a quorum available, quorum being 5 or more members. And that way we can know, okay, we're gonna have a meeting, we can post the agenda online, the general public will be able to go see what's on for the board to talk about if they wanna, watch the meeting, if they want to figure out a way to attend the meeting, anything like that. It's more transparent, and we were running into situations with our previous boards where it might be a day or two before the meeting and we didn't know if we had a quorum, and we were like, do we have the meeting and hope that people show up? Do we cancel the meeting and then people will say, oh, I'm available, So establishing the hard deadline of 7 days in advance that we make the decision whether or not we're gonna have the meeting based on the RSVPs. So, I mentioned at the outset, I have a lot of children. I like to say that I have children at home and adults at work. So we're gonna treat you all like adults. We're not gonna treat you like children. So we can RSVP and we can advance. And your staff liaisons will probably send you an email a few days before that, say, hey, RSVP, let me know if you're able to attend the meeting on this date. And then with the SharePoint site, the Friday before or whenever other information's available, your liaisons will upload information to the SharePoint site so that you can review it in advance of the meeting. One other thing, following Robert's rules and open public meetings, every meeting does have a citizens comment section. So since this is a public meeting with a quorum, there is the availability for citizens either here in the room or through Zoom to make comments.
Right, and it's citizens' comments, not citizen dialogue, discussion, debate, back and forth. It's really to listen to what the residents have to say, take it into consideration. If there's a specific question, the chair or vice chair, whoever's there that day, can simply refer that person to contact staff, or staff will contact that person in due order. But just want to make sure that, again, getting back to this notion of our time is valuable, because it is. We want to make sure that the residents are heard, but we also have an agenda that we need to address, so.
Yes. So it is.
So you actually didn't talk about the Sunshine Act.
Yes, I have another slide on that later.
Okay.
Yes. But really, with the Sunshine Act, any meeting with a quorum has to be open to the public and has to have a public comment section, is really the biggest portion of it. But yes, I do have another slide on the Sunshine Act a little bit later. So annually for the municipality, we are built around a calendar year, January through December budget. And everything that we do as a municipality kind of revolves around that budget cycle, with the commission approving the budget in December. So the manager's recommended budget by charter has to go to the commission on November 1st. Also by charter, the commission has to receive the capital plan on August 1st. So that's why one of the first things that all the new advisory boards are going to have to do is start thinking about capital programs to recommend, which I realize is a very short and quick turnaround. But it is one of the first things, because we as staff are going to start putting together that capital program very shortly. And then the good news is that annual report I mentioned, you don't have to worry about that until next March. So you have some time before you have to do that. You don't have to jump right in and figure out what you've done for the comp plan, because the comp plan was just approved in January. So it's all brand new to all of us. And you may decide over time as a board that there are certain annual things you want to do at a certain time every, during a calendar cycle. So I know with the previous boards, like with the Parks Advisory Board, I think every November they had a subcommittee that did like a walkthrough of the parks. So that was kind of a November thing that the Parks Board did. They did a walkthrough and said, okay, we're going to do an analysis of all the municipal parks. So if there's sort of annual things that start to come up over time that the board says, and we want to kind of add this to the annual calendar, you're perfectly able to do that. I mentioned the capital project prioritization list. So the general number to keep in mind is $100,000. So if a project is over $100,000, it goes in the capital program. If it's under $100,000, it goes in the operating budget. And this is kind of an example from our last capital program of the feedback we got from 3 of our advisory boards. But our hope is that this was 3 out of 10. The hope is that all 5 will now submit capital project prioritization lists, that will help the commission kind of weigh projects against each other when they're considering them for funding during the budget. So you can see that there's a list of projects. Some of them are listed on each page of the capital plan, that there's descriptions of the project, there's justifications for why it's a good project, there's narrative on what goals it meets, whether it's in the comp plan, the parks master plan, any other plan goals that this project may help accomplish, and then estimations of project costs, including construction, planning, design, any soft costs, so that the commission can really weigh the full project costs when they're considering it for funding. So this is a sample from last year, but we're hopeful that, as we move forward and we fully realize that this is a brand new thing for everyone, there's going to be growing pains. It's going to take time. The first year is really going to be a learning process for everyone with these new advisory boards. But we're hopeful that as we get into year 2, year 3, year 5, year 10, that this becomes part of the annual operations of each of our advisory boards. So I mentioned before that boards can have subcommittees. So either the commission or an advisory board can create a subcommittee. A subcommittee should not have a quorum. So that means it should have 4 or fewer people, probably 3, because the board chair is also an ex officio member of any subcommittee. So generally speaking, if there are topic areas that the board is interested in having further conversations on, doing those at the subcommittee level can really help make these board meetings more businesslike and more efficient and less open discussion. Those discussions can get hashed out at the subcommittee level. And these meetings can be more efficient when we have everyone in the room to be respectful of everyone's time. So subcommittees that are created by the board expire annually, but you can just renew them at the board reorganization meeting. So if there was a certain topic area that the board wanted to have a subcommittee on, and you can just keep renewing it annually, but it's a good way also to keep thinking about, like, do we need to have this subcommittee still, or has it run its course, done its work, and it can expire? Subcommittees can contain either appointed or associate members. I said not a quorum, so you could have a 9-member subcommittee if only 3 of the members were the appointed members, if there's other non-voting members. Subcommittee should give monthly reports to the board. All documents should be shared through the SharePoint site. And speaking of the Sunshine Act too, one thing I'll mention with subcommittees, because there's not a quorum, subcommittee meetings do not have to have public comment, do not have to have open Zoom components. You don't have to record them. You can meet as a subcommittee in a coffee shop to hash through things and then come back and report to the board about what you talked about. Since there's not a quorum, there's no formal decisions that are being made. You're just saying, okay, we're going to recommend this thing to the board as a whole. So the subcommittee meetings don't have to be open public meetings. They can be closed meetings of just the subcommittee. And, if there's topic experts that the subcommittee wants to talk to about something, you can invite them in, obviously. The commission by charter has the ability to create ad hoc committees. Those are established for a 1-year timeframe for a specific matter. So about a decade ago, the commission had an ad hoc committee to study our home rule charter and make recommendations. So that contained residents. There were some, just people with general expertise. And ad hoc committees can also contain non-residents because they can study a specific matter. The one important thing to note is the commission can either have the ad hoc committees be a standalone committee, or they can kind of nest them under an advisory board. So when the commission did the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative, they had those ad hoc committees nested under the community relations board. So kind of how that worked was they said, okay, these are these ad hoc committees that we're appointing these people to, but they need to report to the community relations board, and then the CRB has to take their recommendations and make a recommendation to the commission. So if there was some topic that the commission decided to have an ad hoc committee on, it could, the commission could say, we want it to report to the Resiliency Board. So I mentioned Robert's rules. Robert's rules can be very complicated, but this is not a big deliberative body. This is not Congress or a Senate. This is an advisory board. So really all you have to worry about for Robert's rules are how motions work, because you will be over time making motions to recommend things to the commission. So a motion can be made by anyone except the chair. Motion has to be seconded in order to proceed to discussion. Anyone except the person who made the motion can second it. So the chair is allowed to second a motion. And then after it gets a motion and a second, it goes to discussion. The chair kind of, facilitates the discussion, calls on people, so on and so forth. And then whenever it seems like the discussion has reached its end point, moves on to a vote. Vote can be done verbally, all in favor say aye, any opposed nay. If it's a close vote, you can do a roll call vote where you call on each individual person, because we want to make sure that we get the vote correct for the meeting minutes, because even though all of our meetings are recorded, live streamed, available on our YouTube channel, the official record of the meeting is the meeting minutes. So we want to make sure that the meeting minutes have everything proper and correct. If there's any amendments to the motion, that's kind of its own little carve out. Basically follows the same process. If someone wants to, move to amend the motion, needs a second, the amendment gets discussion, and then there's vote on the amendment to the motion. If it passes, then you go back to discussion and discuss the amended motion and then proceed to a vote. If it fails, back to discussion of the original motion and then proceed to a vote at some point. Okay. I mentioned the SharePoint site that the staff liaisons are responsible for maintaining it. Board members will get invitations to it. All working documents will be stored there. Any agendas, pre-meeting information gets uploaded there. And after a meeting, the staff liaisons will upload meeting minutes to Laserfish, which is our internal document storage, as well as sending it to IT to post on the website. The one thing I'll note about meeting minutes, because the board approves minutes from the prior meeting at its meeting, there's always a 1-month delay for when it gets posted online. And that's just to make sure that the meeting minutes kind of accurately reflect in the board's eyes what happened at the meeting. So minutes are not a verbatim copy of everything that was said at the meeting. Meeting minutes just have to be a general summary of what people talked about. But sometimes when you're talking in a meeting, you might say a wrong word or misphrase something. And so you do want to take a look at the minutes just to make sure that what's in there accurately captured the intent of what you were saying. And just to also make sure that we spelled everyone's name correctly and things like that. So that's also why, minutes don't get posted until after the board approves them. And it's like that for every board. That said, if someone from the general public is really interested in what happened in a meeting, the video's usually posted a day or two after the meeting, so they can go watch the video, but they won't have the meeting minutes until, a month after.
Any of those videos are basically posted into perpetuity.
I believe so, through our YouTube
I
channel.
mean, yeah, be clear about that.
Yes, that is my
Been
understanding.
there for a long time.
Yes, until YouTube changes their policies or IT decides to store it somewhere else. All right, so I mentioned the comprehensive plan kind of being the overarching guiding document of the municipality. One of the things we did through the comprehensive plan process, which is unique because I don't know of any other community in Pennsylvania that's done this, was the 5 major sections of the comprehensive plan line up with the 5 new advisory boards. So we've aligned our comp plan with our advisory boards so that the recommendations of the comp plan really serve as kind of the initial work plan for each of our advisory boards. So we've kind of hit this perfectly of, approving a comp plan and doing board realignment at the exact same time to have this perfect congruency between what's recommended in the comp plan and kind of who's tasked with working on what within that plan. So I mentioned, each of the 5 advisory boards, each of those sections of the comp plan has a list of goals and objectives. There's other varieties of plans that are here in yellow that have either already been done, are in the works, are going to happen soon, that lay out other goals and objectives that'll kind of be part of the overall purview of what a board is considering when they're making recommendations, as well as, work plans that are devised by a board, and then other priorities and recommendations within the capital improvement plan. So the comp plan being a 10-year plan, we are fully aware that it is a long-term plan. It's not going to be all done in a year or 5 years, or maybe even 10. Some of the things in the plan say, begin a 50-year effort on this. So we're fully aware that it's not all going to get done right away, but that's where the advisory boards come in to help us prioritize and recommend projects to help advance the goals of the comp plan, and kind of figuring out, timelines for, okay, this recommendation might take 3 years to do. So if we want to get it done within this 10-year window, when do we need to kind of start working on it? What does that mean as far as prioritization versus other short-term low-hanging fruit kind of things? As well as tracking and reporting on progress towards meeting those plan goals. I mentioned at the beginning, municipal staff is responsible for implementation. The commission's the one that ultimately approves the budget, but the commission does take the recommendations and prioritizations of boards very seriously when they're weighing things for funding in the budget. So talked a lot about, we want you to focus on these things through plans that the commission has approved. But let's say you have your own idea, that's not in any plan. So the first question to ask is, does it further a goal or recommendation in any existing plan, even in like a tertiary way of saying, is there a way we can tie this idea to something that's in an adopted plan? And if there's a way to do that, then great, you can kind of roll forward with it because there's a way to connect it to an established goal of the commission. If you can't tie it in any way to any existing goal or recommendation in a plan, the next thing to do is discuss, at a meeting with your commission liaisons, staff liaisons, is it something that's feasible for a local government to do? Is it something that's feasible for Mount Lebanon to do? Mount Lebanon is fairly large in the local government sphere, but as far as an organization goes, we're relatively small. So we have 150 full-time employees, but that's including, police officers, firefighters, public works, recreation. So as an administrative staff, we're not huge. And even as an organization, compared to a dollar bank or UPMC or something like that, we're very small. But in the municipal government world, we're fairly large. So thinking of it something, is it feasible to do at the local government level with the capacity we have on staff is a key discussion to have. Then the board would make a motion to, at a meeting, someone would say, I move to request the commission to provide direction on this idea. And then your commission liaison would take it to the commission and say, my board made a motion, they would like to pursue this. And then the commission as a whole can weigh that request against all the other commission priorities, all the other ongoing projects, and then kind of give you a thumbs up, thumbs down on whether or not they want the board to do this. And the reason we set up this structure is we don't want boards doing a lot of work and spinning their tires and then getting really frustrated when the commission says, thanks, but you did all this work, but no, thanks, we don't want to do that right now. So this may take a little more time on the front end to make sure that it's aligned with what the commission wants to do, but it's worth it in the long run to know that the work you're doing is supported by the commission and you're not wasting your time. Because as we've said, everyone's time is valuable. We don't want you to feel like you're wasting your time. You're very generously volunteering your time. Okay, so in the comp plan, just to kind of run through, there was a ton of recommendations in the resiliency chapter. So there's a lot in there. It's very dense. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. But generally speaking, at a high level, some of the recommendations in the comp plan, expanding the tree canopy management plan, partnering with the school district and community groups on planting plans, revising ordinances to address issues related to site ecology, beginning long-term efforts to bury overhead wires in strategic locations, undertaking a climate action plan by 2030, encouraging a transition to carbon neutrality, encouraging and incentivizing household waste reduction, reinforcing local systems for emergency management, investing in stormwater management solutions. That was pretty much the ecology portion of it. Under the land use and development, the very big pending project for us is the redevelopment of this south garage site next to the municipal building that took up a pretty large chunk of the comp plan section too. But we did a structural analysis on that facility last year, and the structural study said we have about 5-ish years left in the useful life. So it's still safe to park in now, but there's we know within the next 5 years or so that that garage is going to have to be reconstructed in some capacity. So the commission is working through, considering consultants to help us with a feasibility study there on, what could go there. The comp plan had some recommendations on potential considerations for a mixed use development where we could have the garage underneath with, commercial and residential built on top of it. So there's a lot of work to be done there, but that is a very upfront project for us as a municipality. Updating the zoning and subdivision ordinances, a compendium piece to any comp plan is always a zoning update that usually requires hiring an outside consultant to do. I think that's on tap most likely for next year. We definitely don't have the staff capacity to do it this year, I'll say that. Working with the partnership to add vitality to Uptown, supporting redevelopment of underused parcels on Washington Road, implementing improvements to Parsway. For those that might not know, Parsway is that little alley that runs on the other side of Washington, kind of between the T tracks and Washington Road, that if you've ever gotten off the T and you're like, why am I in this alley? where's the business district? So, thinking about ways to better connect the T station up to Washington Road, and then strengthening our other commercial districts between Beverly Road. The C2 highway districts are mostly like Cochrane Road and the Galleria, so think like CVS, Cochrane Road, that area, the Giant Eagle area, and then the Galleria is a C2 district also. Castle Shannon Boulevard commercial districts, a lot of the time, we found even through the comp plan process and the public feedback, a lot of people said, oh, we love the 2 business districts that Mount Lebanon has. Everybody thinks about Uptown, everybody thinks about Beverly, but Castle Shannon Boulevard does have a business district, so finding ways to promote that is kind of the third place in Mount Lebanon, and strengthening that district as well. And then working with outside partners, the Mount Lebanon Partnership, St. Clair Health, other community organizations to create exciting and inclusive programming that can loop in more people. One of the things that, we like to say is that government can be the forum and create the space for which community can happen, but government doesn't have to be all things to all people all the time, right? So we can create a space and then work with community partners to do programs in those spaces and, have exciting things that are available to the community, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be us doing something. So where to begin? Because that's a lot of stuff between those two. So we have a number of funded projects already in 2024. An active transportation plan, which we'll be putting together an RFP on very soon to go out for a consultant. Stormwater fund projects, the Activate Uptown plan, which I know Eric has been working on, and he can talk to you more about what all is involved.
Yeah, I'll have a few words for that after this.
Yeah. Greg has been chairing an internal team on fleet management that we're working with some outside consultants from Duquesne Light on also, right? Duquesne Light?
And Connect, yeah.
And Connect, yes, thank you. So that's very exciting. And that falls under the sort of, considering the municipal fleet potential transition to either hybrid electric vehicles, how that all works. And then various uptown events that are planned for this year as well. And then future projects, I mentioned the zoning ordinance update is coming. The one other thing I'll mention that the commission by ordinance established falls under the purview of this board, and Phil's kind of the local expert. So Phil, if I say anything wrong, just jump in and correct me. But under the Historic Preservation Act of 1966, local entities have the right to comment on federal agency projects within established historic districts. So primarily this means anytime there's a request for a cell phone tower or a cell tower, and our ordinances are heavily geared towards co-location. So that means putting something on top of an existing building, not putting a new pole somewhere. And Phil on the Historic Preservation Board was the one who did a lot of these reviews. So from time to time, you may get requests for comments of, does this fall within the historic district? Does the board have a comment on this? And so you can either appoint a subcommittee of people or one person to kind of serve as the point person for that. But it may be good because Phil has done this for so long, and I don't want to speak for you, but may not want to do it forever. So it may be good for Phil to have kind of an understudy to also learn what the process is for doing these reviews so that we can have someone, when Phil eventually leaves us at some point in time, to be able to continue this on, because the commission, by the establishing ordinance of this board, did say that these reviews do fall under the purview of what the board is responsible for.
It's much simpler than you might think. It's really just that any federally funded or permitted, so it's not necessarily a federal agency. If anyone is required to get a federal permit to do something in the municipality, bring it in the district, they've got to go through the State Historic Preservation Office to make sure they're not impacting anything of historic significance. And so will send out notices, not just to us, but to the Historical Society and so for anybody that in the public that might have an interest in preserving the history of their region, has an opportunity to say, we think this could impact the district or impact the historic structure and would like to be part of the consulting process. That's all you're saying. You're not saying you can't do this. You're just saying we want to be part of the planning process. And because it has to be approved by the State Historic Preservation Office. So it's a simple letter. It's just a matter of remembering when those notices come. If you don't respond, you are basically saying you agree with this entity that there will be no harm to your district. They use that as concurrence if you don't respond at all. That's why we have to make sure we respond in some way and say, oh, putting that tower on top of this historic building is gonna change its character.
Just a bit. Yeah. So that is a very important function of the board. So, like I said, I know Phil's done it in the past, but if anyone else on the board wants to kind of learn the process, it may be good for Phil to have an understudy. And Phil's done a great job for us, so I'm not trying to replace you. But, okay. So also I mentioned about the Right to Know Law and Sunshine Act. So the Right to Know Law, any documents relating to public entity business can be requested by any citizen, which is pretty much any written document, including emails or text messages. And really it's stuff relating to board business. So like I said, incidental communications don't really apply. If you text each other, hey, I hate who the Steelers drafted, that's fine. And has a 50-50 chance of being correct. If it's about board business, just kind of, be aware that it could potentially be requested. The Sunshine Act, any meetings with a quorum must be open to the public. So any deliberations and decisions must occur at a public advertised meeting. So the meetings for this year have all been advertised already. And then all public meetings have to have a public comment section. As I said, emails not exempt from the Right to Know Law. Court cases have held that they are public records. And then if you want more information, there's stuff on our website about right to know requests. On the Sunshine Act, it applies that, any meeting with a quorum falls under the Sunshine Act. So board members really shouldn't deliberate through group email. You should save any deliberations for your meetings. And really deliberations is kind of, figuring out, debating something you're gonna vote on. If it's incidental, it's incidental, but really try and keep the deliberations for the open meetings. And then all official actions must be done in an advertised public meeting. You are allowed to have executive sessions on certain topic areas. Not sure if any of these are really gonna fall under the purview of this board, probably not personnel matters, probably not discussion of litigations. The only thing maybe would be consideration of purchase of property. But the one thing I will say with exec sessions is if you have an exec session at the next public meeting, you have to announce we had an exec session on this topic, which could lead to further questions. So really, if you have any questions about Sunshine Act stuff, contact our municipal solicitor, Phil Weiss, and he'll be able to help you. If the board does need to have an exec session on a topic, Phil can be available to attend that meeting. So, just keep that in mind as well. The one other thing I forgot to mention before on the slide about subcommittees. So the municipal manager did designate 2 staff liaisons, and the commission has designated a commission liaison to come to the board meetings. The manager has not designated staff liaisons for subcommittees. So if you want a staff person to come to a subcommittee meeting, you have to request the manager allow that staff person to come to the meeting. So the board meetings are fine, staff and commission liaisons come to those. But if you're having a subcommittee meeting and want a municipal staff person there, you have to request the municipal manager allow them to come. They're not required to go to the subcommittee meetings. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers everything I had. I know this was a lot of information, kind of like drinking from the fire hose, so.
Would you do it again, Ian?
This was the 7th time I gave this presentation, so if you want to see it again, there's many videos of it, in fact. Yeah, so you can go to the instant
We can
replay.
see like what different ties you wear and.
Yes, although I'm not on camera, but.
Oh, shoot, you're right.
Yes.
Oh, well.
And I will say that this is intentional for the podium to be here for public comment, because like for our general commission meetings, if there are public commenters, they are not on camera. And we found over time that prevents people, or doesn't prevent, but I'll say somewhat deters people from wearing ridiculous outfits and grandstanding when they know that people aren't going to be able to see them. Back in the day, a long time ago, there were people that did those kind of things when we showed the public commenters, and then they had told all their friends, oh, watch me, because I'm going to be doing this crazy thing. So we still get people that come and are very, passionate about what they talk about, but we want these to be formal business meetings. So we'd like to keep the podium off camera so that, you know,
And there's a clock, public comment is 5 minutes, not to drone on about this, but you know, it's 5 minutes per individual. They stand there if they're here, and if not, they can speak.
and the clock will buzz. I think Shannon
Okay.
can start a timer and it'll count down the
Right.
buzz when the 5 minutes is up, so, yep. Does
Great.
anybody have any questions?
Again, this is gonna live on the SharePoint, so, you know, when you're on your beach vacation, feel free to tune in. Watch it again.
Or if you really need to get something to put you to sleep at night, you
Yeah.
can tune in and probably be out in the first 5 minutes, so.
Thank you, Ian. So if there's no questions for him, we'll just move on. It's 7 o'clock, so we're getting into getting late. So one point that I wanted to mention is the agenda format, just very quickly. Obviously, we're not adhering to this. This is just a template, because we don't have minutes. We don't have many of these things, right? So, but one of the notions I want to point to is time stamping things. So we're being efficient with our time. You know, we're not, again, you know, overextending. As you just saw on that, we're the board that gets to be 3 different boards in one. And we have a lot of different activities that need to be done. So we're gonna have to be very clear and intentional with how we spend our time. And that's going to evolve over the course of this evolution, the journey that we're all on in this resiliency board. So I just wanted to bring that note up. There will be some adjustments to the agendas, working with whomever the chair is and various things. But what I'm going to try to do, and I'm sure that whomever the chair is will want to do, is make sure we're all using our time efficiently. This is an opportunity to take action on things, an opportunity to summarize the work that happens outside of the group, all that sort of thing. There's times we're gonna need to spend maybe the entire duration on a particular subject, and there are times that we're gonna spend 5 minutes on a subject, right? So the agenda will be our North Star for all of that. A very quick question. If you had an issue with the SharePoint, I'm not gonna ask for a show of hands. I know there were a few folks that had some challenges with the SharePoint. If you're having a challenge accessing those documents, email myself or Greg, and we'll get that resolved for you. It might be an error on your part. It may be an error on our part in some way. So let's just be clear that we get that sorted now. Shouldn't be a big deal. The SharePoint's where we're going to function out of. So all of your agendas will be found there, minutes will be found there, that presentation will be found there. I could go on and on. So that's really where we're going to work. So if you had an issue or find an issue, just reach out via email to myself or Greg or both of us if you'd like. As I mentioned, next number of meetings, I do apologize. It's just my schedule. I'm traveling and various things going on, so I will miss a few meetings. Let me ask a question now. Does the group that's here want to discuss picking a chair and vice chair today? Or would you prefer to wait till we have the newest member of the team and have that discussion at the next meeting? I'm here at your pleasure, whatever you would like to do. If you'd like to do it tonight, we can have a cage match, we can do arm wrestle.
So I have a different idea, which is, has everybody read the chapter? Has everybody read the resiliency chapter of the comp plan? I would much rather have us come back at the next meeting,
That's what I would rather.
all having read that, and then go through and actually talk about what we want the priorities to be for the committee.
Well, let me riff off of that. So I think that would be important. If you haven't spent time with the resiliency chapter, please do, because that's why we're here. So look at that and start to formulate what you consider to be priorities. One of the notions that I had, and again, it's for discussion, I'm just throwing this out there. Since we don't have a chair, I'm going to act like one. You know, there are essentially 3 different groups that have been merged in this. Let's just be honest here. I'm an economic development practitioner. That's what I do. Okay, that's why I'm here. Yes, I'm very involved in historic preservation and have been in my past. I managed East Carson Street. I could go on. That's irrelevant at this point. I sit on environmental boards. That's fine. But we do have 3 different important nodes of thought that we've got to work together on and advance different projects, right? So one of the thoughts I had was that, you know, maybe we break that out in a few sessions where we look at those 3 areas and look at those things. We spend a time at a meeting discussing that after we choose a chair and a vice chair. And start figuring that priority series out. I mean, I view this as going to take a few months to really kind of gel what's going on. You know, what the priorities are, how this group functions, what various, what's of important and what's not. So, you know, that was just one thought, and we can discuss that, but I concur absolutely that we should probably wait to pick a chair. And again, out of fairness for the gentleman who was just appointed, he may really think he's dandy for that, and he's not here to argue for himself, so.
I say we make him the chair.
Yeah, that way, I know, that's his other thing. He's chair and vice chair, and guess what? You have to come back, shit, he's gonna take all the minutes.
So then a question.
Yes.
So we have 3, I mean, the resiliency chapter is broken up into a lot of individual parts though, right?
Right.
All of the different actions. It does categorize them, but there's some that don't quite fit into the categories, right? So I do think that having an overview, maybe led by the municipality, of the different sections, because there's also stuff that's missing, and it'd be nice to know why things aren't in there, because we'll identify things that aren't in there that could be. That's where those new ideas come from. But then after we go through that exercise, I think it would be really important for us to prioritize within either those 3 areas, right? Because it's not necessarily going to align with your day job. And so I want to make sure that we're sort of thinking about them separately. We're thinking about what this committee is doing, separate from what might be happening at the municipality. Like he was talking about some of the priorities for the municipal staff. We can play a really great role in things that aren't the top priority. We're in the like second priority, right? So I wanted to make sure that we understand, because I know there are things that are really, really top priority for you as staff members, which may or may not be the things that this committee needs to focus on because you're already doing it. So that's why I was like, if we start there with a couple of overview sessions, you're not going to be here for 3 months. So I guess, Greg, can you walk us through over the next 3 months, kind of what the plan looks like?
I think we could. I know with the Environmental Sustainability Board, we had somewhat of a transition plan that was drafted up. So some recommendations that would be made to this group. So
Because that would be helpful, is to have recommendations. But again, we want to be able to look at them sort of in like all together, so that then we can start to figure out, okay, which ones actually make sense for us? Which ones can we actually move the needle? Which ones are already being taken care of by a consultant or by municipal staff, so that we can sort of carve out what we want a vision for this committee to be over the next year.
Absolutely, and things will get teased out and fleshed out. I mean, I'll just use the South Garage as an example. I mean, that's a priority, not just because, I'll tell you this right now, I have no interest in tearing that thing down, because it's gonna be a pain in the bumpkus, you know, when that happens. So I'm just gonna throw it out there. It's not gonna be an easy thing to do, but it's something that's absolutely necessary to do. But with great pain comes great rewards sometimes. And I think that, you know, we have an opportunity to really rethink it and have a catalytic project here that incorporates a lot of the very things that the Resiliency Board is here to do. Environmental sustainability factors, you know, all of these sorts of things. So,
But not everything. Like there will be certain parts of that we can help to inform. But I just want to make sure that.
but
it's
again,
not
this
the
role
only-
here, your
it's not
role
the
here is
only
to
thing
advise
that-
the commission.
Right.
That's your purpose. So how you dice that is, I guess, the journey we're embarking on, but it does, I think, need to start with some various things. I mean, we're a brand new team of people. We don't know, I know Anna and I know John and I know a few other folks. But how the interplay and the priorities, so there's gonna be some time that we have to sit here as a group and figure those priorities out, which it comes with education and information, which is what we're discussing. And while I won't be here at the meetings, because I will not even be on this coast, I am here all the weeks and time around that. So, you know, there's plenty of opportunity for engagement with this one of two staff members. So I think what we're gonna do, and Greg and I had already talked about this, you know, we're gonna spend a little time strategizing and organizing, you know, how the next meeting looks and the meeting after that and things like that. So we'll kind of draft something out for everyone and make sure that you're aware of that. So one other point, was there any questions? I'm sorry, before I Anybody that's ever worked with me knows I tend
I
to.
just have, so
Please.
based on Anna's question, as you're drafting the next agenda, will it include what she's asked for in terms of
That'll be,
education?
that'll
part
be
of it. That'll be it.
agenda.
Got it. Got it. Okay. I just want.
So, yeah, I mean, yes.
Got it.
So,
I just wanna, we don't need to think about anything that might be related to the budget, right? Because that comes up in June. So if there's any financial stuff that we need to be providing advice about related to, like, for instance, maintaining brick streets.
how did I know that was gonna come up?
And we need to be on top of that and.
Right,
Sure.
so the budget considerations that we should be thinking of. So basically, it means that you all would be presenting information to us in a way that we can address it in a timely fashion. Like, when do we need to know the budget things and what are the budget things we should be considering? I guess that's
Well, that's gonna be coming up here like,
next month.
Yeah, so
month.
there's no, I mean, this runway is, there isn't one. I mean, we're just launching into space here. So, again, that's gonna require everybody take a look at the comp plan. Again, that is the North Star document. Can't say it enough. That's where, the focus is and will be. So looking at that and thinking about budgetary stuff. That being said, this is the beginning of something, it's gonna be very challenging coming up with succinct, organized, and well thought out budgetary requests in a month or two. So if it could be done, I think that's fantastic. But I also just personally wouldn't freak out because, we've also got next year, the year after that, the year after that, the year after that. So I think right now, at least from where I'm sitting is, again, I'm just, I think that we need to figure out what our priorities are and start getting that house in order. There may be some things that rise as you're looking at the comprehensive plan and looking at other budgets. I know some of the folks in this room have served on other boards, so you're kind of coming in hot with some projects maybe that were in a former life on a former board. So there might be some stuff that you can bring to the table already. If that's the case, that's fantastic. I know in the EDC and ESB in particular, and I'm pretty sure the historic preservation did this too. That, there were a series of things during your exit interview, or your final meetings where you're pulling together priorities. Pulling that together, dusting that off will probably give us the Cliff Note version of how to address or tackle any budgetary requests that may come out. So we'll work on sculpting that. Any other questions? Because there's one other thing I want to talk about, and I think we can probably go home unless you want to hang out and play
I
poker.
have one more idea.
Roll.
So you're gonna be making reports so that we can review them over the next couple of months. There are 18 points. I just wanted to confirm how many there are. I would love for each of us to pick, you take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and sort of become the kind of expert around that. And I'm just saying that for the purposes of the next couple of weeks. Would you all agree to a plan like that?
Yes.
There's 18 points. So I don't have any,
18 points, 9 people.
2 points apiece. Can I make assignments? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
No, I want to do 12.
You're just a
15,
12 man.
16, that's not enough. Oh, 17, 18 is the next person. So just read those,
Yeah,
kind
but
of
for instance, he's not here, right?
the expert on that, on those two, is just sort of the concept. And then as they're making the presentations, we have at least one person who's done a deep dive on those particular ones. I've already forgotten my numbers.
Yeah.
You're 15, 16. Okay. Thank you.
Very good. So one of the projects that is currently active is Active Uptown. So I would be interested in having someone, you don't have to make a decision tonight. I mean, think it over. I'm going to talk very briefly about what Active Uptown is, the elevator talk. And if it's something that intrigues you, just reach out to me and let me know. So what Active Uptown is a new moniker for what was going to be called Vibrant Uptown 2, but I'm never saying Vibrant Uptown again. So, and this is different. So the Vibrant Uptown project, which was the streetscape enhancements, is over, done, that's fine. there was always the intent that that was the beginning, not the end. And so, you know, that was really the hardscape stuff, what I'll call the boring stuff, like conduit, sidewalk, these sorts of things. The Active Uptown initiative is the second phase of planning. This is very high level. We're not getting into a deep engineering dive on anything, but what we're doing is we're looking at a rethink of Clearview Common and how it functions. The Parseway was brought up on that. That's been a discussion. I've been here 16 years. I've been talking about it for 16 years. I'd like to stop talking about Parseway. So, but anyway, Parseway is going to be a part of that as well. Clock Tower Plaza, as I call it, which is up where East End Brewing is, the portal, as I've always called it, which is just the stairways to the light rail platform. What it is it's essentially a placemaking plan. And it's looking at various gathering nodes throughout the district and also connectivity between the light rail station and the central business district and enhancing that through capital projects. You could imagine a major redo of Clearview Common, to simple things like sunshades, to scoring patterns, public art, all of these sorts of things. So we're having a steering committee kickoff meeting on May 14th. It'll be in this building. If you're interested in this, just let me know. You can just send me an email. I'm the lead on this. Pashik Associates is the subject expert that'll be our Sherpa on this journey. And we'll have a steering committee kickoff meeting on May 14th. There will be two subsequent public meetings and then some additional steering committee meetings. And essentially what it'll do is create the conceptual path forward where we can then start to drill in. And this body will be involved in that, discussing where we prioritize capital requests, things of that nature. That will not be happening this year. So we're looking at probably about a 6-month planning process. So if you're interested in serving on that, just again, let me know. And if you want to have a conversation about that, just let me know. I'm happy to tease out more about what's going into that. So that's all I have.
Question. So for that planning meeting, there've been different plans that have happened over time. Is this resurfacing some of those or
Yes.
starting fresh or?
Yeah, when we were going through the Vibrant Uptown planning process, it became pretty clear that a lot of people wanted to talk about things that we weren't there to talk about. So the notion was, well, you know, we're not just gonna throw in sidewalks and be done with Uptown and walk away for another 30 years. So this is addressing a number of things. One, there was something that was called the Partnership Placemaking Plan, P3, which has a lot of conceptual, very high level conceptual ideas about how to activate areas of Uptown. Everything from a fitness loop to public art and things of that nature. There's the Uptown Strategic Plan that can inform some of the lessons that are happening here. The Pashik has all that information. So the idea here is, but none of that was ever publicly vetted. There was never a public meeting. There was never a discussion with business and property owners. It was just a plan by very smart, well-intended people to get the conversation started. This is the Active Uptown initiative is looking to aggregate and consolidate all of that, conceptualize it, shop it to the masses, and then actualize it in the coming future through the budgetary process.
I'm interested in helping.
Right on. All right, then we have someone. Okay, well, wait a minute. Now I said one. Okay, well, we'll talk about it. Let's talk.
I'm not available on the 14th, so he can do it.
Okay, all right, we'll figure it. So we have two. Anybody else that pile? Come on, let's go.
Myself, I live on Uptown.
Okay. All right. Let's do it this way. I'll send some information to all of you and, just and then we'll figure it out. I just need one person. It's never good to have a committee that is insanely huge and which has happened to me and I won't do it again. So, we're already at around 10 people. I'm already getting nervous. So I think, we can bolt on a few.
So we'll let someone new do it then.
We'll talk. I had two, right? You were interested? Okay, wow. So we'll figure it out. And we could probably do two. but let me think about it. You know, we're really looking for subject experts and things like that, you know, so we can come in and take care of business. So a background and, you know, understanding how urban, at least some understanding of urban planning, the concept of placemaking, things of that nature, would be super helpful. But it's just so you know, the steering committee kickoff meeting on the 14th. Is just the steering committee. And what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be doing a walkthrough of the district with the group, which is the design committee mostly from the partnership. So we've got some great people on there now, Paul Ostergaard, who's with Urban Design Associates, just fantastic talent. So we're gonna do a walkthrough, and then we're gonna talk about how we want the public meetings to look like, how we want them to be. So that'll be really what's on the agenda. So it'll be actually kind of a fun meeting. They're all gonna be fun, but, okay, well, we don't have a chair, so I'm just gonna say, you guys ready to go home?
Yeah.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Well.
Thank you.
Thank you.